Well, hello, everybody. Hello, Curtis. Hi, Teresa. Hello, hello. Hi, Barbara. How are you all? Hi, Justin. Hi, Zammeah. Zammeah, view this request. I just requested you to join me, Zammeah. So let's see what happens. Hey, Jordan. Hey, Z Gay. How are you? Okay. Oh, there you go. You got to flip your
I
camera. You're sideways.
see, I see. Hold on. Let me turn this way. Give me 1 second.
Sure. You've got time. It's just 6:26, and we start at 6:30.
Okay,
Yep, now your bottom's
upside
up.
down
Your
still.
bottom's
Now
up.
let's try it this way.
Go
One
the
of
other
these
way.
days.
There you go, right there.
All right.
All right. So, are you able to move your camera just a little bit away from you because we're only getting part of your face?
Yep. Give me 1 second. How's that?
Okay. Yep, that's perfect. Now I see that
Better?
beautiful face. Yeah, I see that beautiful
Okay.
face. So we have a couple of minutes, and so while we do have a couple of minutes, I just want to do my usual public service announcement, of course. So I want to first thank all of those people who have joined us so far, and I am your host, Dr. PG Hudson. I appreciate you all joining me. It makes me so happy every time I come on to see so many people coming on. And I want to just say to you that this platform right here is for special people. And that means that everyone who comes up here is special. You're special because you're in my audience. You're special because you're on to be interviewed. And I'm special too. We're all special.
You
And
are special.
and on this platform, I deal with a lot of different topics. We talk about human trafficking, mental illness. We talk about college-bound students. We talk about dysfunctional families. We've talked about my books, of course. And so let me stop right there for a minute to give myself a plug. So all of you out there already know, and if you don't know, that I have one book, Flying on Broken Wings, but my second book is now in the hands of my editor, and it is called Finding December. And believe it or not, I'm having so much fun that I have already picked up my pen and begun writing book number 3. And so I'm having a lot of fun with it. The journey is different because I'm trying to do a different genre, but chugging along with it and really having fun. Um, Also on April 11th at the same time, 6:30 p.m., I'd like all of you to come back and join me when I have author Justin Wilson on my show. He will be interviewed, and Justin just dropped his book called Courageous Vulnerability. You don't want to miss this. This is a book that I think you'll all be able to appreciate because this brother is talking about mental health in Black men and talking about some of the experiences that they have, because we know that for the most part, Black men don't publicly speak about what's going on with them. And Justin is going to be doing just that. So I am looking forward to having him come on. And one other show that I'm going to have coming up, which is completely different from what I've been doing, it is going to be a show on the alternate route teacher training program that I do for Rutgers, because I joined this group of Black adjunct professors, and all of a sudden, I became the focus of attention. Everybody wanted to get information about the alternate route program. So I'm going to actually be doing a show on that. Anybody who wants to change their profession and go into education, look for that show because it's going to be coming up. And I think that's about it for announcements. And I did pretty good because we're at 6:29, about to turn to 6:30. And when 6:30 comes, we're going to be ready to roll. And there we go. So good evening, Zammeah.
Good
And
evening.
how are you?
I'm good. I'm
Good.
pretty good. Can you hear me
Yes,
clearly? Like, am I loud enough?
yes, I can. I hear you coming through quite clearly. So tonight we're going to be talking to Zammeah, um, because I wanted to have someone on my show to represent Women's History Month, but in more specifically, Women's Herstory Month. And I selected Zammeah for a few reasons, but one, because she's very special to me because she's mine. That's number one. And number two, because I believe that she's one of those hidden gems that New Jersey and the world has that really don't get their due in the way that those people who are always in the limelight get theirs. And so we want to kind of share that with you. And the first thing I want to do, Zammeah, is I'm going to take our audience, some of them who may know and some of them who may not know, through a short bio of you. However, this bio is going to be a little different because it's not going to be the one that you present when you're going for your job interview. I'm going to talk about Zammeah from a little girl because I want my audience to understand why she was selected, why she's in the work that she does. So going back to birth, she was born at Market Hague Maternity Hospital in Jersey City. And when she was 3 years old, we moved to East Orange. So Zammeah was educated in East Orange. She got all her training as a young child in East Orange. But it was also in East Orange, and while she was still that little girl, that I recognized that Zammeah was demonstrating an ability to really connect with people and to be empathetic with people and have compassion for people. And that show, it just kind of came through from the time she was a little girl. Now, to illustrate that point, we upped Zammeah's age. Yeah, we had to cheat on her age. We upped her age because she was mature for her age, first of all, but she wanted to do something in the line of people work. And so when we did that, she became a candy striper at Kessler Institute. And you forgot about that, didn't you?
Okay.
She became a candy striper because she wanted to be able to connect with people. And of course, those of you who know Kessler Institute, there are patients there. And she loved what she was doing there. So that was the first real sign outside of the fact that I had noticed in our neighborhood that she would connect with certain people and would have empathy for them and so forth. So now, fast forward, she was a very bright young lady, garnered a full academic scholarship to the Petty boarding school in Hightstown, New Jersey, where she went. And then she was off to one of our country's leading HBCUs, Howard University. Then after graduating from Howard, with her BS degree in sociology, she began her career path. And guess where it was? In that same position of thinking, with caring for people and so forth. So she had her first position with Johns Hopkins University, University, where she worked as a research project. She worked on a research project as a facilitator for women at high risk of HIV and STDs. And then from there, she worked with people who had head injuries at the Head Injuries Rehabilitation and Referral Service. And then, of course, it kind of went fast. She was the GNS Associates as a case manager, New Community as a senior job placement coordinator, Big Brothers and Big Sisters. And finally, in 2004, Zammeah became, after graduating from Rutgers with her MSW, she became the director of Isaiah House's Teen MAP program, where she would remain for 8 years. Now, Zammeah, before you talk about where you are now, I want to ask you a question because it was those experiences that I just talked about that helped to shape you and bring the core of who you are to where you are. So tell us what your inspiration was for becoming a social worker. And then on the tail end of that, then talk about after that 8 years, where you ended up in that transition when you left the Teen MAP program.
To answer the first part, I don't know that there was anything in particular that made me want to go into social work. It really just is so natural for me. It's innate. As you said, since childhood, I was always the one sticking up for the bullied kid. I was always, the one speaking up when there's something was wrong. I was friends with everybody. One of my closest friends when we were kids had cerebral palsy. And we used to have sleepovers and have fun and run and play outside. We still communicate to this day. It just was so natural for me. And before anybody ever said to me that, you know, if you choose a career, it should be something that you would do even if you weren't getting paid. That's actually what ended up happening. I did something that, you know, I enjoyed so much because it's just a natural thing for me to either advocate or to just try to help people. So it just, I kind of just gravitated for it. I can't really remember any jobs that I had where I wasn't doing that. So it's it's just been that way all along. Um, to the second half, you know, I did do the program director role for the 8 years at Isaiah House, and I was totally fine and content in that position. I could, you know, do it in my sleep until I got a call 8 years in stating that the former executive director who had been there for 20 years was going to be resigning in 30 days. And that the board at that time contacted me because it really was a big shakeup for Isaiah House because she had been the only person who had been running it for so long. And they asked me to do it in the interim. And I was like, I'm good doing my program director position. I didn't want it, didn't want the headache, didn't have the, you know, the training to do it, but there was no one else. And so I said, okay, I'll do it temporarily until they find somebody else. And it was really challenging because my peers were now under me. And there was a lot of growing pains. And if any of them are on here, they can attest to the fact that it was kind of like my staff from the building where I was very defensive of me and, you know, checking on me. And the other people were like, what are we doing? Does she even know what she's doing? And, you know, I intended to only stay in the role for 6 months until they found someone else. But what I recognized was that I was being challenged every single day, like every moment of every day. I was being challenged in that role. And it just made me realize, yeah, you could do that other position in your sleep. So it means you really weren't growing. You weren't learning anything new. You weren't doing anything new. In this position, you don't have a choice. You've got to figure things out. And so, you know, so 6 months in, I was offered the position permanently. And so now I've been in this role longer than I was a program director.
In fact, you've been in this role for 12 years, right?
Yeah, 12 years.
Yeah, putting you in our house for 20
Yeah,
years, right?
this year's 20 years. In September, I will have been there 20 years.
Yeah.
So
I apologize.
when I,
Moving
what's
around.
that?
I apologize that my camera was moving around, but
Oh, it's okay.
my battery was saying low battery.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
so I'm hoping my husband is listening and will bring me a charger because my battery is going. Okay, so knowing that, Zammeah, generally, and I'm sure that the woman who was in that place before you didn't come from our community, correct? Am I correct?
correct.
Okay, so here you are. You're from the community.
Mm-hmm.
So how did it feel that you had grown up in this community and now here you are working in this community? What did that feel like? Talk to us a little bit about that contribution. You're contributing to the community that you actually grew up in.
It felt like a really big responsibility. You know, it actually started as a program director because, believe it or not, a lot of the teen girls that came through my program, when I would see their last names or I would find out, like, I grew up with your mom, or I know your cousins, or I know this person or that person. And so they were like my little nieces, because at the time I was still pretty young and, you know, I really wasn't old enough to be some of their moms. But it just made me feel really responsible for doing things right and making sure that the clients were treated right. And you know, my staff can all say I'm very client focused in the sense that we want to make sure that people who come in a vulnerable state are not further traumatized by staff or people who are making them feel bad about their situations, which, you know, we really focus very solidly on cultivating that within our organization. So I just feel like it is a huge responsibility because I grew up there, but also because I know what the potential is in growing up in East Orange. You know, I think about all the teachers that I had, even though I was there only through elementary school, those formative years for me at Lincoln School, I feel like I learned the most important lessons that I needed to learn in that time period, that K through sixth grade at Lincoln School. And so I think about that and what I got from East Orange and all that time. that contributes to how I feel about what my responsibility is at Isaiah House. I really do have more of a stake there. I said in the beginning, I'm going to give it 5 years in this position. I'm going to give it, then I'm like, okay, I'll give it, 10 years in this position. But now I just kind of feel like I don't want anybody else to take this over, because I don't feel like they're going to do it the way that I would. They're not going to nurture it the way that I would. They're not going to make sure that things are just so, the way that I would.
And that's a good feeling. That means that you have complete buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what anybody who would want someone to run their company or to be a part of a company, that's what you want somebody that's going to feel about that company the way that you are talking about. Let me just stop for a minute and see what our audience is saying, see if there are any questions or comments. Or we got quite a few people on. Let's see. Let's see. So okay, people are saying hello to you, Zammeah. Camille has joined. We have some cousins from down in South Carolina who have joined. Siobhan, my goddaughter, has joined. Hello to all of you. Somebody from Leadership Newark has joined. One of your staff members, Bernadette Lee, has joined. Your cousin Hortense is on.
Okay.
Dave is on. There are quite a few people. And I'll come back. Oh, I think Amber is on as well. Yes. Oh, when love works dynamically, they're on. Tammy is on. Okay, so we got quite a few people. So now, Zammeah, you just gave us a mouthful when you talk about how you have connected with Isaiah House and how you don't want to leave it for anybody else, so to speak. So let's just keep that line of thinking, thinking for a moment. And here's what I want you to think about. When we think of Isaiah House, I think most of us would think of it as just this entity. It's Isaiah House. That's it. It's just that. But I know that personally that it is a multifaceted agency. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the misconceptions that people have about running a place like that?
That is such a great question, because it's almost hard to make people understand, because we make it look easy. I have an incredible staff. Like, really, people come in, they do what they need to do. We make sure that collectively we make everything work. But we are putting out fires all the time. We have clients that pass away and they might have roommates. And so now you've got to, get some support for the person that's left behind, and then all the people who are feeling a way about that. We've had babies that have gone into cardiac arrest, and our staff have had to provide, CPR and save babies' lives, which is amazing. We then will have our ceilings and everything crash in because the pipes burst, and so there's water everywhere. Like, we get all kinds of fires to put out on a daily basis, but we're still expected to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I think people take for granted that we have to perform, because there are people who are depending on us around the clock. And another misconception is that many people know that, we recently were blessed with being awarded a significant, substantial sum of funds, because of a grant award. And so people just automatically think when you get something like that, oh, now you got it and you can just lavishly spend money, and you can't, because there's still so much that has to be done. And, if you are really highly government funded like we are, we have about 95% government funds, which means that if they decide to pull a grant, if they decide not to renew, we have a program that we've had for 5 years, it's not being renewed. And so the whole program goes away. That's $500,000 a year, right? So we have to find other ways to fill in those gaps and to fill in those blanks. So even though we make it look like, oh, everything is just running smoothly, it's not as smooth as it looks, as we make it look. And we don't necessarily share all the details of what happens on the administrative level, right? I think about when I was a program director, I didn't know everything that was going on at the upper administrative level with the executive director. Mm-hmm. And so I understand when my staff don't necessarily know what's really going on. I think about when we were kids, And if there was some struggle that was going on, we never felt it. We never knew about it because you took all the hits, you took all the bruises, you dealt with it privately so that we didn't have to feel it. And that's how I feel we as administrators have to do for my staff and for the residents. Like, we don't tell them if something extremely crazy is going on. We deal with it, we fix it, and then we will let them know what they need to know in order to continue to be able to do their jobs. But it's important to us to just be able to let things go really smoothly so that we can continue to do this work and for people to see it. So I love the misconception question. I want to add one more thing about that. I was frustrated that my board at one point didn't really understand how we operate and what we do, because we're not corporate. We are not a corporate entity. And so there's always this battle with trying to do what you do in nonprofit, but conform in some ways to when you have a very corporate board, because they're used to doing things a certain way. And don't get me wrong, it's very helpful because they provide a wonderful structure. You have the things in place that are helpful, but I needed to find a way to get them to understand the differences so that we could meet somewhere in the middle. And so I talked to a group of my colleagues from an executive committee that I participate in, and we created a video where we sat around, and it was 5 or 6 EDs from all kinds of different shelter organizations, and just talked about, what our days look like, what the struggles look like, what things, we'll get one of our funding entities will call us at 4:30 and say they need something before close of business or else, and close of business is 5 o'clock. And so I could be working on a grant and have to drop everything I'm doing to jump in and give them what they need by close of business. And when you have 15, 20 grants, you could get that kind of call from anyone. So it's just important that people know that although we make these things often look really smooth and easy, it's not always as easy as it seems.
Right. And I can see that. But you know what? What you're doing is what good leaders do, right? Good leaders jump in, they do what needs to be done, and they make it seem like it's smooth and seamless when behind the scenes there's something else going on. So kudos to you for that. But now you started talking about uh, something that you just received. So we know that lately, Facebook, you were blowing up Facebook because you all had received something, a large sum of money. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to talk about that, but I want you to start by giving us the backstory and tell us all about that time, because that was exciting for all of you who heard about it. And I know our audience, for the most part, know about it. But give us the backstory. Tell us all about that.
So I had this really cool development person, Gianna Santelli. She's not with us anymore, but she's still a friend and family to Isaiah House, and she was working for us last year. And she sent this opportunity, yield giving opportunity that Mackenzie Scott was doing, that she's done before, because, for those of you who don't know, she's a philanthropist. She was formerly married to Jeff Bezos, and he was, owned Amazon. And so she got all this money, and she decided she was going to give away a lot of it, especially, to like HBCUs and so forth, because my HBCU, Howard, has benefited a lot from her philanthropic giving. If you saw the camera move a little bit, my beautiful daughter just came in and she's kind of getting me straight here. So anyway, she sent the opportunity to me, and we looked it over, and we were like, this is a long shot. But that's what we kind of do. Like, I always go for the hardest thing, because I'm like, the worst thing that can happen is they can say no. Thanks to my mom telling me that. She's like, what's the worst that can happen? They can say no, and you move on. And that's kind of what we thought. And so Marcy Silbert, who was a former board member, but also a very good friend of mine, and sometimes she will write small grants for us, she and I tackled this together and said, let's just go for it. And she started it out, and then she'd reach out to me for sections that I would need to do. So we tackled it, and we reached out to my board. Like I said, they're amazing, and said to them, hey, we really want somebody to be able to bring this to life a little bit more. And we got a local guy who's done a lot of production and editing, Charles Walsman, who's amazing. And he decided to do the video in for us, because we had to do a 90-second video to go along with the application. And another one who is a neighbor to Andre Brower, the actor who unfortunately just recently passed away, but agreed to narrate our video for us. So we got the video, we got the application. We were like, okay, it's in God's hands now, let's submit it. And before I ever submit grants, I always say a prayer over them, submit them, and just hope for the best. And they were only selecting 250 organizations in the entire United States. So every nonprofit had the opportunity to apply. So we were just like, that's like really slim chances, but you know, you got to be in it to win it. And we get this first notification saying, hey, you guys have to review 5 applications of your peers, and you know, peers will also review your application. So we're like, okay, so we have to do this level. We do that. Then we get to see the responses. And when we're reading the responses, we were floored at what our peers thought of our application from all over the country. So we were like, we might have a chance here, because, you know, you thinking people might not want to score you too well because it increases their chances, but it was really looking pretty good. It was like they were really seeing us. So we were like, okay, next step is that it has to go to an independent panel. And these are people that are selected by Yield Giving. And then we got to see what they had to say about us. And it was remarkable that they could actually see us in just one application and one video, and a 90-second video at that. And we really started getting a little hopeful, because we were like, this is $1 million. They're giving $1 million away. And the beauty of it, was that it was unrestricted. Nobody does that. They always say, you got to do this, you got to spend it on this, you got to do that. So when after all of that happened, and you know, we got through those stages, we get this email a couple of weeks ago telling us, congratulations, you guys were selected as one of the 250 organizations. But they found that there were so many amazing nonprofits in the country that they increased the number of organizations that they decided to fund. But because ours scored amongst the highest of the organizations, they doubled our gift. We were hoping for the million. To get $2 million and you were hoping for $1 million, it was really just unbelievable. And I scared my HR director to death, because I went in her office and I had a knot in my throat and I couldn't talk. So it wouldn't come out for me to tell her, we got this, you know, it's actually real. So we're all really, really excited. But immediately with the excitement, it went to, okay, now we got a plan. There's so many things that we've been wanting to do. There's so many things that we need to do. There's so many ways. And I need to say, in 2017, we had so many moments where we thought we were going to close our doors. 2017,
I remember
you
that.
know, and my team, we came together, we put a plan in place. We did all kinds of things to make that not happen. And we continue to grow and grow and grow and grow and fix things. And, you know, we went from maxing out our line of credit, which is $100,000. It was maxed out. We had no reserve account. We were calling funders like, can you pay us so that we can make payroll? It was just crazy. Fast forward, we haven't used our line of credit in 3 years. It's at 0. We have 2 reserve accounts. We have investments. We now have this amazing gift. You know, we just are in a much better place. And then we've done 2 huge events. We did the 30th anniversary and the 35th anniversary, where we raised significant funds, because people have shown us that they really believe in the work that we do, and have supported us. So that gift from Mackenzie Scott was a tremendous blessing for Isaiah House.
Well, I'm so happy that that happened for you all. And on the heels of that, I want to go back for a minute, because you were talking about some misconceptions. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions that people have of unhoused people. But in addition to that, can you talk just a little bit about what a typical day would look like for one of your residents or family of your residents?
Well, the cool thing is that the typical varies per resident, and that's why we're different, because we treat people as individuals. Some of our residents work, some go to school, some are in programs, some are in have substance abuse issues. And so based on that, the day looks like what it's supposed to for that person. Mm-hmm. So if you work overnight, we're not going to say get up at 6 a.m. and you got to get out of the shelter and leave. Sleep all day until you're ready to get up, because you had to work an overnight shift. Or if you have a program during the day, we have a daycare on site. So our clients are able to bring their children downstairs into a licensed daycare facility so they can go and take care of whatever business it is that they have outside of Isaiah House. But, the basics are that, we provide breakfast 7 days a week, breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week. So in the mornings, people get up, they in time to go in and get their food in the community room for breakfast. And, I warn people who come working for Isaiah House, because not just the clients eat, but the staff eat too. And it's very much a freshman 15 type thing. People will gain weight if you work at Isaiah House, because our cooks can really cook, and we let everybody eat, and food is like a big deal at Isaiah House. But anyway, they could be going to one of their events or appointments or whatever they have, and then they come home. Dinner is at a scheduled time in the community room. We call different floors down at different times, and same thing with everything: the breakfast, the lunch, the dinner. Like, different people come in at different times, and it's hard to just say one way, because again, we work with people. Right now we have this really cool thing that we created out of the pandemic called shelter helpers.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of clients that are undocumented and they can't work, they can't make any money. And
Mm-hmm.
then others who are just not able to really find work. And so they become shelter helpers, and we can give them kind of like a stipend to help around the shelter. And we have some that are regulars that help around the shelter. They sign a sign-in sheet, and we pay them every week so that they feel like they're contributing to their families, their household, to Isaiah House, and have something to do. So their day might look like, jumping in and doing whatever it is that they need to do at the shelter.
Right. So, okay. So now you've got a couple who's coming to Isaiah House, and they're married. Do you allow the husband to also come in and stay, or is it that only the wife and the children?
Really quick, Jay, in answer to your question, yes, we do allow volunteer workers. We don't separate families. That is a no. And so we're very proud of that. We have families that look like whatever their family looks like. It's who are we to tell them who their family members are? We're not asking for, a marriage license. If you call this woman your wife and this man your husband, then that's what we're calling it too. And they will share a bed. The only thing we don't take is single men. But let me be clear on that. There are single dads there. So we have had many single dads. In fact, we have some now that are there with just them and their children. So as long as a man is accompanied by their children or by their family, then we take men into our shelter. But yeah, we take very very interesting family combinations at Isaiah House, and that's because there are not a lot of places that can take the variety of families that we see.
Right. Right. Okay, so you said something else too that I want to go back to. You mentioning something that happened during the pandemic. So we know that during COVID, too many people passed away, too much pain, all of that. And we look back at that and we think about it and say, what a horrible time. However, there were some benefits in terms of COVID. I mean, our lives changed, the way we business changed, all of that. But what were some of the benefits for Isaiah House?
Well, I think that it seemed like it might have been harder for shelters, but I think because we're so used to pivoting, we were like, all right, let's do it. What are we going to do? But it allowed us to create the shelter helpers. We got funds that helped us to get ahead, like the PPP funds, which I think a lot of people were able to get that. We learned how to better care for ourselves, in the sense that if you're sick, just stay home. Like, we don't want you to come bringing that here. We're not going to be sweating that. We were implement like mental health days and telling people, we're going to still pay you, but you need a mental health day. So we started doing things like that. And just all of the safety measures that kind of came in place. But we found that, unlike many other people, shelters don't really get the luxury of working from home.
Mm-hmm.
We still have to show up. And although our management team were able to be home more than the residential workers, because residential workers have to physically be there, we didn't stay away for very long. And most of us came in maybe 4 hours a day and then split it up with whoever the other person is and do the other half of the day. But we showed up. We just figured it out. And so Miss Lee, who is one of our longest staff members, who's like an auntie to me, she coined this term, just doing what we do. Like when people say, what do you do? We just doing what we do. Like someone recently said to me, you should write a book. And I'm like, I can't really write a book about for me, I don't know how to explain to somebody how to be who I just naturally am. Like, it's not something that I feel like I mean, of course I've learned things along the way, but some stuff is just kind of like, I just do what feels natural. And I think that my staff do the same thing. And that's kind of what we did during COVID. We didn't even when we had people who were COVID positive, we were so creative, like how we made that work and it not spread to other people. And the clients were so cooperative, and it just worked itself out. We got more laptops because there was telehealth. And so people were joining. The community was outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
People were donating things so that our clients had enough food, that we had, PPP supplies, that we had iPads so people could do telehealth, that, there's just ways to keep them isolated. We did not want our clients to go stir crazy. So we made an Amazon wish list, and we posted to our social media, listen, our clients are stuck in their rooms with their families 24 hours a day. Like, they don't get out. They're going to lose their minds. We need some type of activities. People were donating their old iPads and their old laptops so that whole families could have stuff. All these games that we put on Amazon, they were gone in like 20 minutes. I kid you not. There was one woman who, when we first made the list, she bought everything, and we had to add more things on the list. That's how amazing this community has been to Isaiah House. But we were giving the families stuff to do in their room so that they didn't lose their minds. And the kids would be on a tablet that somebody donated. I remember VJ, one of my old board members, he had all these technical things at home that his kids weren't using anymore, cleared them off and just sent in these iPads. It was just great. It was great.
Good. Okay, so I'm going to stop for a second because I have a comment here. Indeed, you are client-focused and a mentor to your staff. I am proud to work in Isaiah House and have you as a boss. That's Catherine.
Oh, Catherine. Thank you. Catherine is your sister from Nigeria who buys you something every time she goes to Nigeria.
Those beautiful outfits. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Your cousin Hortense says, amazing, Z. So proud of you.
Thank you, Tint.
Amber says, hey, Zimmy.
Hey, Bess.
Someone just Polka said, that's my ED.
Oh, thank you, my staff.
And I was about to ask a question that's kind of it's kind of a question that I see up here. Kurt Song says, what is the most challenging situation you've had to face at your job? So before you answer that, I want you to answer that, but I want you to also think about this question too. You've received a lot of accolades since you've been in Isaiah House. I mean, there were accolades before then, but since you've been in Isaiah House. So I wonder, when we think about accolades, sometimes, they give us that feel-good effect, but we also have to make sure that we stay grounded, right? So there are times when we can feel humbling, and there are times when we don't. So I want to ask you about that. Like, what is it that you've done in Isaiah House that makes you feel really proud? And what is it that's humbling to you? And then you can talk about the most challenging situation you face at your job.
I think that what has made me so proud is that I really didn't have any clue what to do when I got into that ED position. And it was very, very overwhelming. And I had a small child, and I was just like in my 30s. I was like, what is happening here? Like, I don't know, what, just trying to make my peers who now had to work for me comfortable, how to make everybody feel safe. That was really a burden at the time. And it really felt like, how am I going to do this? But I would sit and I took a lot of time and a lot of effort researching and talking to people and showing up at meetings, doing things that I don't have the time to do now, but I just did everything. I would pull out files and read stuff. I would meet with my ED and my HR person and just sit around a table and just try to figure things out. And I'm just really proud of how we collectively were able to save this amazing organization that really needs to be in the community. Like, we saved it. It really could have just from there, from lack of potentially having good leadership, could have just gone by the wayside. So I would say that's the thing that I'm most proud of. What was the second half? I'm sorry, I forgot the second question.
So what's most humbling to you?
Oh, most humbling to me is that it's even hard to say. Like, people think I'm a big deal sometimes, and I don't even like saying that. Like, sometimes people treat me like they'll want to talk about what I do or my work or my accomplishments, and I don't really like to talk about it much. Like, I don't even like to talk about work when I come home, and like, I might speak to my girl group, my girlfriends, my dolls and stuff like that, and just say, hey, this is my accomplishment or whatever. But it's really humbling that people are always like, you do amazing work, and oh my God, you do this. And I'm like, I don't even feel like a grown-up sometimes, right? And so, I have days, I've said to Nancy on occasions, I'm like, Nancy, like, I said this to her so many times over the year, we run a multi-million-dollar agency. Like, we're doing this. These little Black girls, we're doing this, And what also can be humbling at times is I think that people have looked at me and thought that they could get over, but they don't really know me. And so as nice as I am and as much as I smile and I'm happy, I oftentimes have to remind people that there's a reason why I'm in this position and have been for this time. So I have to humble them, because oftentimes it works out in my favor, because I'm not going to come if I'm not clear on my stance and my position. So I've humbled a few, but I feel so humbled that people think that what I'm doing has such a big value in this community.
So now the question that Song was asking, what is your most challenging situation that you have faced at your job?
I really think it was when we thought we were going to have to close the doors. I didn't have a strong board at the time. I loved the wonderful older women who were the former board when I first came on, but they had been on the board for 20, 30 years. They were all retired. And then I had to create a board. I hadn't done that. I didn't even know really what the benefit of the board was, but I just knew it needed to be done. So I had to create this board, and I had to figure out a way not to let the doors close. And it was scary. Like, we had to come up with, how are we going to not terminate anybody and still be able to meet our financial obligations, right? And so we came up with ideas. We were like, okay, we each take a furlough day a month. This will save this amount in the budget, and everybody can still keep their jobs. And if we reduce the vacation time of these particular employees, and that means that we don't have to pay two people at the same time. Like, we got so creative, and it worked. It worked, and then I'm like, I pray a lot when it comes to work. And I was like, okay, now I need to figure out other income streams. And so I was like, okay, we got to get somebody into our building on 14th Street. It was empty. And I just kept thinking about it. And one of my colleagues ended up needing a place for her program. So she ended up renting it for 3 years. So I'm like, that's regular income. That's $36,000 a year, because I didn't charge her a lot. It was just $3,000 a month, and then I'm like, okay, so we're cutting here. We got some income coming in over there, and the building is just not sitting idle. And, what else can we do? And so then we had our 30th anniversary, and we raised like $130,000. It was just different things along the way. But it was such a scary time, because we literally had to chase down money. It was at one point where we had a lot of our funders who owed us about $785,000 at one time. So it was almost $1 million in receivables that we had not gotten, and we still had to try to figure it out. So it wasn't that we weren't owed the money. We just weren't, they were slow to pay us. Mm-hmm. And we were like, but we never missed payroll. Thank God, And now, like, those days are behind us, thank God. But it was a rough time.
Mm-hmm. So, um, another question that I had, but I see it's in our from our one of our guests, and that is, what can the average citizen do to help? So, yeah, we know that you have received this grant, but we know also, even though the grant is not structured so that you have to earmark it for this, that, the other, we also know that it's not
Mm-hmm.
enough. So, what can the average citizen do to help Isaiah House further grow, develop, stay afloat, all those things?
There's multiple ways that we tell people to get involved. We have different volunteer opportunities, and sometimes, and we don't always have a volunteer opportunity, but sometimes we do. And what we find is that when people get engaged, they're sold because they can see the work that we're doing and they can feel the energy. We've never had anybody come that has not felt Isaiah House and be like, okay, I'm in. And once they're in, then they start spreading the word to their friends and their colleagues and their employers, and that kind of expands our reach into the community. So that's one way, of course, volunteering. There's always, in-kind goods and donations, because that also helps with our bottom line. We give out food from food pantries, so people can donate food. They can donate kitchen supplies, because we always rotate that stuff. All of our paper products, the aluminum pans, the Reynolds wrap, and all that stuff. It's expensive, and if it's something we don't have to pay for, wonderful. So if you want to do a drive for us, we say drives are great, because you can say, what do you need right now? We'll be like, we need all of this. You can get your friends, your coworkers to do those drives and give it to us. And then we also have opportunities for people to do matching with their jobs. If you're going to make a donation, please check with your job, see if they're willing to match it, because it's helpful for us. We have an Amazon wish list, so people can always go to the Amazon wish list and see what we have on there, because we update that with things that we need at the shelter. We have our Marcy, who I mentioned, that helped with the Yield Giving application every year. One year she started this and gave me money and asked me what I wanted to do with it. And I said, well, we want to do something for our staff every year for their anniversary. Each person, as their anniversaries come up. And so she has donated at the end of the year funds for me to buy American Express gift cards that I distribute to my staff members on their anniversary to show our appreciation for them. And the longer that they've been in there, the more they get. So the newer employees, they get like a $25 American Express gift card. But if you've been there for a long time like me, you can get $150 American Express gift cards on your anniversary. So making donations towards that is helpful. I do caution people. We appreciate people wanting to bring stuff when they clean out their garages and their basements, but we don't have a lot of storage space. And so we need things to be able to rotate out as quickly as possible. So if it's 95 degrees outside, please don't bring us scarves, hats, and, jackets. And, always call us first to say, do you need this? Because somebody else may have donated an abundance of those things, and so we don't need it at the moment. But that doesn't mean to stop calling us. It just means we don't need this right now. Can you check back with us at a later time? But then again, there's always fundraisers that people can do on their own. Like, you hosted your bourbon tasting at your home. You had people pay for the bourbon tasting, even though you hosted it, and you donated the funds to Isaiah House. So having cute events at your house and donating the funds is a great way, because that's fun. Showing up at our events, buying tickets to stuff, end of year donations. There's just tons of ways. I could talk about that forever, but we all know the monetary ways that you could get. But those are some of the.
And for those people who are interested, I noticed that Dave has put the website for Isaiah House in the chat area, so comments area. So please check that out if you like to check that out. So Zammeah, a couple more things. One, this being Women's History Month, or Women's Herstory Month, and it being so important, what does that mean to you, her story? What does it mean having her story told, and perhaps other women's stories told as well? What does that mean to you?
I just think that there's so many varieties of stories out there. I'm always interested in just the commonality and the differences, like, because the story, the stories just vary so much. You know, you just never know. Like I might speak to one of our clients and their story is so extreme, and you're just sitting there listening and, you know, responding and so forth, and then you listen to the next person and their story is all over the place. Just to give an example, like people are always shocked because they think in my position that I've had this, you know, cushioned life. Although I have had a pretty, you know, decent life. You know, when I talk about my mom was homeless and she moved from place to place as a child and she was molested and her mom was an alcoholic and, you know, people around her were abusive and she went to 10 schools and like 10 months, you know, they're like, oh my God, you know, and it just kind of helps people to normalize that we all have a story and they don't have to look the same and they don't have to be perfect. You know, I really learned from my sister because I have always just been just so, do this in this time frame. Everything is just on point, you know, go to school, go this amount of time, get married, do this, do that, have kids. And you know, I've said this before, as I gotten older, I'm like, oh my God, how boring, you know, like it just seems like I'm just, and my sister did it totally differently from me, but we ended up kind of like in the
Same
same,
place.
you know, you don't have to do things the exact same way to live a fulfilling life or to get to where you want to be. Whatever your story is, it's beautiful because it's yours and it's different and it's unique. And, you know, and I think that's, you know, the best part about it is that everybody's story is unique. All my girlfriends have different stories, you know, some that you'd be like, oh my God, or oh, I'm so sorry, or oh wow, you know, every range of emotions that you could think of in listening to my girlfriends, and they probably have ranges of emotions listening to my stories too. I just think it's beautiful that the uniqueness of our
Right.
stories.
So one last thing I want to talk about, and a fun fact.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to share a fun fact with everybody. So some of you out there may know, and many of you may not know, but Zammeah actually had an opportunity to begin a different career
Oh God.
before, before she became a social worker. Uh, and it was
Oh God.
in the entertainment business. Back in the 90s, Zammeah was a rapper. Believe it or not, she was a rapper with a promising career now. Um, Her mom kind of said, you know, you don't need to take a gap year. You need to just go on and finish school. So that was cut short. But she had professional pictures. She had lots of attention. There were people in the industry calling, people who thought she and her partner were pretty hot and tempting. And they were really ready to give them um, a position out there in that place.
Well, we had
And
a
they will,
record deal. We had the deal.
exactly, they were called A to Z. Now, the A was for Amber, who's actually on this call, and of course, Z was for Zammeah. So they were something. So what I want to do, Zammeah, is I want to ask
Don't
you
ask
if you have any.
me to rap.
Oh,
I'm not doing it.
I want to ask you if you have anything else that you want to add, because once you have done that, I'm gonna play them a little snippet of one of your songs. So, do you have anything
Please.
to add?
I think people had questions on there. We should probably just answer the questions
All
and I'll
right.
play that. I'm going to say this to my staff. Don't ask me about this tomorrow, okay? Because we are not going to be talking about it. I am not going to be rapping. I'm not going to share any details about my sordid life back in the Howard days when we had a rap career.
So, is there anything else you want to share, Zammeah? I'm looking at the looking at what's here. People just kind of we've said. Um,
Fine.
well,
My little
here's a
brother
here's,
just got here.
here's a question.
Hey, Eric.
Zammeah, here's a question for you. Couture says, "Love that you talked about how you all prioritize mental health as a staff, but how do you take care of yourself as a leader?"
Um, I get loved on by my man,
Mm-hmm.
and I do the spa because the spa, I love massages. Massages are great. I do mindless TV. And I know I'm like, I love, this is shameless, but I like loving hip hop Atlanta. I know. Y'all don't judge me, don't judge me. But when I watch stuff like that, I'm like, it's so ridiculous that it makes my life feel so much better. And I know that's so crazy, but the best thing for me though, for my mental health, honestly, is like seeing my baby, my daughter. Like when I see her, it just, and depending on whatever her mood is, it just brings me so much joy, and it's great for my mental health. But also like my girls, like spending time with the dolls and my girlfriends. Like I'm about to do a girls trip for my birthday next month. That refuels me. And it gives me what I need, because like the support that I get from my girlfriend circle, and the fact that I'm able to be so vulnerable in that space, it really does replenish me and give me an opportunity to, just kind of be like, okay, all right, and then just kind of hit reset and get back on it.
Yeah, we do have a great time together in the doll circle, right? So that you're
Yeah.
right. I have to agree with you. Here's a serious question that just came up. Dave said, "Can you share a personal story or experience that illustrates the profound impact Isaiah House has had on someone's life?"
We just got an email today from one of Catherine, who's on here, one of her clients. But we've had several. There was the young man who we honored at the 35th anniversary. He came to Isaiah House. He had with his two brothers. They were orphans, and we were taking unaccompanied youth at that time, and so they were like 14, 15, and 16 years old, or 15, 16, and 17 years old, and they didn't have any parents. And we made sure they were enrolled in school. They stayed with us for years. They attended high school, graduated high school, went to college. The one who's been honored has, I believe, a master's degree as well, very successfully working. But that's just one story. We have so many of those stories. We have a client that was just there a few months ago, and we require each one of our clients, no matter what their level of income is, even if it's, unemployment, Social Security, to save 30% of their money, because they don't pay anything to live at Isaiah House, right? So they don't have to spend their money on food, toiletries, nothing. So we require them to save 30%. And this one client, she did what she needed to do. She would go to work, she'd come back, she would take advantage of what we have. And in like 3 months, I believe, she saved $6,000. $6,000. So when she moved out, she was elated. She was so excited about having money for a security deposit to move into her new place, being able to have saved that amount of money. You know, we have the story of the woman today that we got the email from, who was just so grateful with how kind everybody was to her while she was there. And she also moved out with a significant savings, but she was able to move into a permanent housing apartment that is also an Isaiah House program that we put her in. But there's just tons. I could share stories for days about the clients that we serve. And I have to shout out some of my residential workers. As I said, they've saved lives. We have had babies that have been saved, and other people who are on the edge of checking out and don't, because of a conversation that they may have had with one of our, staff members. It's every day that something like that's happening.
So, two things. One, someone, D.H. Morgan said, "I pledged $300 to the cause." That's one.
Yay!
And
Wait, who was that?
I'm sorry, that's D.H. Morgan 150.
That sounds like it might be one of Dre's cousins.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Stiletto, we know who that is, says, answer
Kiki.
the question. She says, answer the questions and play the song. So,
Kiki, I'm gonna kick your butt.
so it's only about 30 seconds, and we made sure we kept it clean. Let's see.
Oh no, that was Delroy. That was Delroy. Thank you, Delroy.
My man, you can rest assured I'll be your #1 fan. I'm like a fire emblem burning. Can't you feel my heat? This ain't a trick, but I'm tripping, so accept my treat. Whatever you want from me, baby, out your heart to be. I'll be your pretty young thing, so call me PYT. You can trust and believe I'll treat you just like a king. I'll be the queen of your kingdom and the song that you sing. Full time lover. I wanna be your lover. Full time.
This is so embarrassing. That is so embarrassing.
How about that?
That is so, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
No
I
one can
just
embarrass you like your mother. No, that wasn't me singing, Tamika. That was Amber. That was me saying, full time lover, won't you be my man? You can rest assured I'll be your number one fan. That was me rapping. There's no way I would be singing.
yeah. So Katura was saying to you to get back in the frame. So
Oh, sorry.
you had your head,
Wait.
no, you had your
Oh,
head
because
down.
I was
What was
looking
going
down. I did not want, oh gosh, it's embarrassing.
on? And your cousin Z said, "Fire!" And oh my goodness.
Oh, thank you, Tammy. I love you too.
So yeah, this was
Hey,
great.
little Sean.
This is great. We still have people on. Tammy said tonight we celebrate a multi-talented, beautiful queen. Love you, sis. It's good to have other
Thanks,
skills.
Amber.
Pop up. Hi.
Hi,
So
Papa.
yeah, this was great. I thank you so much for having you come on. I've been trying to get you on for a minute
Mm-hmm.
and finally was able to do so. Miss Lady Jane says, love it,
Hey,
loved it.
Janie.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, I've been trying to get you on for a minute, and I think it was worth the wait. This was awesome. I appreciate all of my audience for coming on, and those of you who are following Zammeah but not following me, I urge you to follow me at ERPGB Hudson, and make sure you come on again next week. I believe it's next week. It's the 11th of April when I have Justin Wilson, who's going to come on and talk about his book, Courageous Vulnerability. It will be at 6:30, as I said. And then a week or so after that, we're going to have the Alternate Route Teacher Training Program for people who might be interested in changing their careers and going into education. Amber says, so amazing. I love you guys.
Love you,
I
Am.
love all of you. Thank you guys so much
And
for
thank you. Can I
yeah,
just quickly say thank you so much because so many of you are continuous supporters of Isaiah House and of me. I know that sometimes it can be burdensome when I'm like, hey, I'm having an event, or can you just, and like just an example with Delroy, him pledging, this is the norm for him, and David and everybody who like is constantly doing stuff for Isaiah House. You, Mom, with you hosting events and sending money, you in California, and you and Pop Up will just send me flowers and donate money for tickets and buying this, that, and the other. That is the reason that Isaiah House is able to sustain itself, because we have wonderful people who are continuously supporting us, and we appreciate you guys so, so very much. I can't thank you enough, and please don't stop. We still need you.
yes, yes. And I'll doing my thing too with you. Okay, thank you. Good night, everybody. We
Thanks,
appreciate
guys.
it.
Bye.